All right, here with Seattle School Board Director for District 7, Brandon Hersey. Brandon, what's up? How are you?
Hey man, I'm blessed. It's good to be back chatting it up with the fam again. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the beginning of school in Federal Way. We were supposed to start today, but unfortunately it got canceled due to power outages. So, we just rolling, making sure that we're staying on top of it. But I'm really excited to talk about some of the updates that we got for Seattle Public Schools today with you.
All right. Well, I mean, this is like, man, you live in like two worlds. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Clark Kent and Superman. Federal Way, Seattle schools, what?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, man. My whole thing is if I can give whatever little free time I have to support a kid somewhere, especially a Black kid, that's my prerogative. So I'm just excited to be in this space where I can make a positive change, hopefully in some children's lives, not only in the classroom, but from, the systems piece being on the school board. So I'm just excited to, provide whatever updates I can to give the community a little more information about what's going on.
You can always tell when it's the beginning of the school year because everybody's optimistic and excited. And so, like they say in the streets, hope you keep that same energy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I appreciate that.
All right.
Cool.
So Brandon, let's get into it, man. Seattle schools have started. People are back to school. Kids are in school. Why don't you update all of our viewers as to like what's really going on for the real school as a director? What's happening with Seattle Public Schools? What are some of the early wins that you guys have seen thus far, and what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, man. So last time I think we spoke, we didn't even have a tentative agreement with our educators. So I just want to give a huge shout out to the Seattle Education Association and the district bargaining team for coming to a solid agreement for us to even begin to plan on how to open up school, right? And so now that we've got our tentative agreement, school has obviously started. We started with some really strong PD in both technology access for our teachers and how to help them support our families, but also some really strong, really well-reviewed socio-emotional and racial education training that's gone on for our teachers as well. And so as many folks already know, school started this past Friday, and we have kicked right back into it this week. The first couple of weeks of school are going to focus on socio-emotional learning and supporting students in that way, and real hardcore academics will start.
All right, so I gotta jump in right there because you're using an educator term, and a lot of people who are watching this, they're not educators. So why don't you break down what socio-emotional learning is?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So what socio-emotional learning is basically social and emotional learning. So kind of in the mindset of mental health supports and how can kids and really their families have resources to better deal with, mental health issues, how to regulate stress, how to reach out for help, how to even have the language to know when to ask for help from a teacher in that way. And so that kind of sums up what socio-emotional learning is.
Is COVID the reason? Is this something Seattle Public Schools has always done, or is this because of COVID?
No, so this is specifically because of COVID and why the focus is so strong, because we've had this conversation before too. Kids have been cooped up for a long time, you know what I'm saying? And even for us as adults, being in quarantine for so long has a huge toll on our mental health. And so we wanted to make sure that starting out this year, we were giving as many supports as possible. That was also something that we heard a lot in the feedback that we got from students in various surveys, students and families, really. So we wanted to make sure that we honored that by giving that time at the beginning of the year.
So I think that's probably a good thing. And I mean, not to knock anything, and hindsight is always 20/20, but considering the high number of marginalized students that are in Seattle Public Schools and the wide education gap, wouldn't this have been something that probably should have been happening long before there was a global pandemic?
Long before, man, long before. And I think that we're seeing all of that come to a head, not only in the senseless police murders that happened earlier this summer and yet continue to still happen into the winter. I think that we're seeing that there are some very real effects, even here in Seattle, when we don't have adequate mental health supports in place, especially in the classroom. So as a board director, I'm really excited to see that we got this now. And really, quite frankly, as to your point, it needs to be a part of the beginning of school for the foreseeable future.
Okay, so you get through emotional, and then what's next for the kids? And beyond that, I mean, there was a report last time we talked that almost 50% of elementary school children never even logged on to the portal. What are you guys doing to get people logged on? What are you guys doing to engage parents and keep parents accountable? What kind of support is out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have stepped up our technology resources. Hopefully the experience has been by tenfold, right? So first off, we're making sure that every child in this district has a device that we talked about. Yet there are also going to be technology help centers and videos that are created, and all of those resources will be translated as well, not only into our top 5 languages, but say you are having difficulties and your language is not showing up in one of our translated videos. We can get you real-time access to a technology support person with translation services that are provided by software that the district has purchased. So what we really are just trying to focus on is making sure that every child has a device, but not only that, that there are all sorts of different types of ways for folks to get support on how to manage that device. And so we feel strongly that with those supports in place, and if we can roll them out effectively and equitably, that is going to have a positive impact on our engagement this year.
All right. Now, you mentioned equitably. I talked to Willard Jemison last night, Willard Jemison Jr., United Better Thinking.
Yep.
They deal with a lot of people we would consider a marginalized population. And he said that it isn't necessarily that they focus on the hardest to reach, they focus on the furthest to reach.
Right.
I've heard you in the past use a term or a phrase, furthest from educational justice. What exactly is Seattle Public Schools doing to reach students that are the furthest from educational justice? Because like I said, every time I talk to you, I have to throw these numbers in your face to say that, like, man, Black kids in Seattle Public Schools are underperforming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the data is clear. That's something that we have to be accountable for every time we have these types of conversations. I think when we even have the conversations around furthest away from educational justice, not only do we have to think of our Black youth, but we have to think of our Black immigrant youth whose family don't speak English at home, or they don't have access to a translator that can support them in their child's education, right? So one of my big focuses as a board member, not only, holding weekly meetings with Seattle Council, PTSA, and PTSA leaders and heads in the Southeast District, has been a big focus on making sure that translation services, not only in terms of technology, but in all communications from their child's school building, are coming home in languages that our families actually speak and understand. And so when we have conversations about furthest away from educational justice, my big focus is not only on our Black youth, because they should be at the top of our list, but our Black youth who are also struggling in terms of getting resources that are translated in their home language.
All right, and now when you talk about that, we've had a conversation as well. It was back in March when everything got shut down and communication started to go down back to the home, and we talked about parents being involved in the child's education in a more hands-on kind of way, because now schooling is from home. And I asked you a question then about, well, are parents getting a syllabus? Are parents getting, do their parents even see what their kids are supposed to be learning? Are people reaching out to parents saying, by the way, this is what your child's going to be learning? I mean, so even before COVID, it definitely should have been that way, in my opinion. But since COVID, what kind of tools has the Seattle School District provided for parents? A lot of them are just laymen, but just want to be able to do their best to support their child.
Absolutely. So there are tons of tools that you can go for. You can go towards Seesaw, Schoology. All this is different types of software that your students will be using that should have not only their syllabus, but also their assignments that are attached to those softwares, right? So every child has an account already. If you are having problems logging in, reach out to your child's teacher. But you're exactly right, man. Like, we have to think about what supports are in place, not only for the student, but for the parents as well, because we have no idea how long we're going to be in this current situation. And the more that we can do to make sure that parents feel supported, the better. Now, that is not to say that your experience versus another parent's experience will be exactly the same depending on your building. That's where I feel that my role as a board director comes in, because if you are hearing like, oh, the district's, from me in one of these situations, right, that the district's got all of this great stuff going on, but you're not seeing that in your reality from your position, that's a problem.
Well, so I mean, that's also the difference between what is it? Equity and equitable.
Equity and equality, all
equity,
that kind of stuff.
Equity and equality and equity is that I mean, for a family that's in Magnolia and for a family that's in maybe an Inner Bay and everything else, man, this new technology is just, it's fantastic. And it actually creates new opportunities and everything else.
Right.
But for another family that might be in South Seattle, it's a totally different type of experience that's there. So, I mean,
Yep.
are you saying that you guys are building up some kind of situation here to make the situation equitable?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
there can at least be some commonality of experiences, because you can imagine that maybe a parent who's an Inner Bay is overly excited, considering the circumstances, to be able to use this technology to their advantage, and where another parent, it very well might be overwhelming. Somebody who might not have ever even had broadband internet in their home, or ever owned a tablet.
Yep, all of those things are true. I mean, you're hitting it on the head. And again, like I was saying, that is where my role as a board director comes in. So as we always do, I'm sure you'll share my email for folks to get in touch with me, because if I don't know if you are having a tough experience and you're not getting any response from your school, that is the type of thing that I can help with and help to facilitate making sure that your kid gets the resources that they need. On top of that, for folks who are still struggling with broadband and internet, we have hotspots, coupons for internet available, all those things that we've talked about before. But again, if it's not making it to you, then that's a problem, and that's where I can step in and help.
All right, so what are, and you guys might as well put it out here now to the public, rather than people find out later on from other sources. What are
Yeah,
the challenges? I mean, I know the school just started on
yeah,
Friday, but I'm sure at this point you guys had lots of listening posts across the district, places
yep.
for instant feedback, so you can make real time adjustments. What are some of the places, some of the gaps, some of the challenges that we're facing right now?
Teams versus Zoom. That's a big challenge that we're focusing on. I think that, we have found that there are many flaws in all of the systems that we're utilizing. And quite frankly, I am in favor of giving permission to use whatever platform is going to help a teacher reach their student. And we have had really robust conversations around the efficacy of Zoom versus Teams. Again, access to technology and broadband, making sure that internet connections are stable, right? There are so many challenges that are just coming from the devices and the equipment and getting folks logged on. And to be fair, those are growing pains. Whenever, we start the beginning of the school year, there's always going to be hiccups, but we cannot rest on our laurels in this sense. We have to lean heavily on our tech department and on our entire system in terms of making sure that students primarily, but also families and parents have access to the support that they need, right? Like when I think about what we are specifically doing to make sure that folks have access to that support, it comes in the way of making sure that they have access to the training videos and how to utilize this stuff in their home language. It comes to the fact that we are still handing out hotspots and internet coupons that folks can access to get broadband. It comes from making sure that every child has a device, whether it be a laptop or an iPad. But we all know that no matter how well we are doing all of these things, there are still going to be children that fall through the cracks, unfortunately. That's where equity comes in, making sure that we are reaching those kids. And so, again, if you know not only about your child, but another family that is struggling, make sure that you are not only reaching out to your PTA, your principal, but also your school board director. Even if you don't live in the Southeast and you might be watching this, you can reach out to me directly.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, all PTAs and principals aren't built equally in Seattle public school districts. I mean, we talk about how some PTAs in Seattle public schools are well funded, well manned. I mean, there's a lot of PTAs where you got parents that are essential workers, 2 and 3 jobs, and then there's other PTAs where parents are stay at home or work from home. So PTAs aren't built equally, and either are parents. So I mean, I'm just calling it like I see it. It is real. And so when you say like reach out to your PTA, reach out to your principal, again, there's a gap in equality, as you would say, across Seattle public schools. But I mean, the whole point of what you're saying, which I don't want to diminish it, is make noise, make people aware.
Make noise and make us aware. And that's the big thing, right? And like, we can have both conversations. There is no way, shape, or form where I'm gonna like sit here and get on this call and think that like every school is running optimally. Like we've got all of our principals who are completely focused on equity and doing everything that they can to support the Black community and other communities of color, because that's just not true. Seattle Public Schools is a racist institution built on so many years and decades of inadequately serving Black and brown families. But what I can tell you now is that from my perspective, the only way to fix that is to do exactly what you said, is to make noise. Let us know about it, right? Because that in and of itself is the opportunity to get what you need, right? Because unfortunately, I don't know what every family is going to be experiencing, but what I do know is that if somebody sends me an email and they need a resource or support, I'm here to help.
Billion-dollar school district, my friend.
Billion-dollar district.
A billion-dollar school district.
Billion-dollar district.
You know, these guys are fighting the whole issue over here with the SPD, and now they got 400 million. You guys at the school district got $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say this then. Let me kind of throw this out here, and I just want to acknowledge something, because you know we have these conversations, and a lot of times I hear from the teachers, and the teachers quite often are left out of these conversations, because we talk about the school board, we talk about the superintendent, or we talk about the parents and the student. The teachers are missing a lot of times in this conversation. Maybe you can talk to us about the teachers in the district and what their commitment level is that you're seeing, and who's doing a good job out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, again, not every teacher is going to approach this the same way. What I can say is specifically, so a prime example, this past Friday, Rainier Beach had a drive-through barbecue where kids could come through, pick up a plate, pick up their class registration, get resources and stuff like that. I had the opportunity to go out and help. I was bagging chicken plates, you know what I'm saying? And so when I'm thinking about, what you say?
That's what you was eating that chicken too. Huh?
Oh boy, you already know, man. I'm gonna pass up that opportunity. Come on now. But anyway, so really what the big thing about that is that like, that's what going above and beyond looks like, right? Because in this time specifically, we have to band together to make sure that folks still know that we're all still human beings, right? Starting the year off with a barbecue is one really simple way, executed really well by Rainier Beach, in terms of making sure our kids still feel like, you know, they still have a community, right? So when we're talking about going above and beyond, I would look to Rainier Beach as an example of that. But there are so many other teachers in their classrooms who are absolutely crushing it.
Right, and I would say this too, and I never miss an opportunity to bring this up when we're talking about education. And you know, you hear me mention Barbara Nielsen, my elementary school teacher at Summit K-12, and it wasn't anything. There was a few cool field trips that we went on, but it wasn't anything spectacular or over the top that really has me calling her out decades later. It was just her everyday commitment to caring, and her everyday commitment to education, and and seeing the best for us, that planted a seed that's still blossoming. And so a lot of times, like I said, these conversations, the teachers are left out, or a lot of times they're vilified as well. And I want to be able to be one to put my hand up and say that I had an outstanding experience in Seattle Public Schools. It started at Summit K-12 with Barbara Nielsen and ended at Garfield High School. So a big shot to the teachers that are out there, making it happen, all the politics and funny stuff aside, they're showing up, and trying to educate these 55,000 students in Seattle Public Schools.
Absolutely.
Wanted to talk to you about one more thing before we go, and it's always something that we get a lot of feedback on, and that's the students in Seattle Public Schools that might be facing some challenges, either through special education or they're in special programs. How has COVID impacted them, and what is Seattle Public Schools doing to be able to make sure they don't fall through the cracks?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so when we have the conversation around students farthest away from educational justice, students who receive special education services are in that bracket as well. And so last year, one of the big issues that we have is because we were in crisis mode, special education services weren't being offered in the same robust way as a family is used to when school is operating normally. This year, because not only is the right thing to do, but because we need to also recognize the legal obligation of our district to serve our students in person if they need to, for the first 30 days of school, you should be hearing from your special education teacher or your principal, whoever is working directly with your child, to assess what are their needs, and then in-person services will be offered at your building. If your child needs in-person services in any way, whether it be through speech, this, that, or the other, you should be advocating for those heavily, because those teachers should be reaching out to you in the next few days to set up a schedule.
Right. And, there's, I guess, one or two other questions here is that there's a lot of students, I wouldn't say a lot, I don't know the exact numbers, you might, but
Yeah.
there's quite a few students who, when school was in,
Mhm.
that was their opportunity to get away from abuse in the home or
Yes.
neglect in the home
Yes.
and things that might have been occurring at home. And now you got students who might very well be home in a problematic situation every day. What kind of resources are there for these students? For one, I mean, maybe some of them the district has already identified that they have these issues, and are you following up with them? Two, what's out there for students that are facing these issues of where school was very much a refuge? And three, I mean, do you guys even see this as an issue at all? Like, do you recognize these kind of things? There's also the other group that I wanted to bring up is the group, you have a big population that's unhoused and homeless.
Yep. Yep.
So and how are you guys reaching them, this homeless population of students that are in your school? So you have the homeless, and then you have the ones who do have homes, but the homes are very toxic for them, or
Absolutely.
dangerous.
Absolutely. And that's what really, like, if we're talking about this specific question, I mean, the data is clear. We've seen since the beginning of COVID that there's been an uptick in domestic violence for, a myriad of reasons. But when we're thinking about what we as a community need to do in order to get back to some sense of normalcy, that is the kid that we need to be thinking about, because every time someone doesn't wear a mask, every time our president makes a terrible decision about where this country should go in terms of responding to COVID, that kid spends another day potentially in a dangerous, toxic situation. The district has tons of resources that are available, not only on our website to get directly connected with therapists and support services, depending on what your situation is, but again, that goes back to why this strong socio-emotional start is so important, because teachers are mandatory reporters. I know that from my classroom in Federal Way. That is why we need to have clear, honest relationships and connections with our students, because that is that is how we are going to find out what students need what supports, right? And so really, that is going to be on your specific teacher, right, to be able to navigate those systems and help you navigate those systems. But again, if your family is in a situation to where they need support and you're not getting it from the school, you can reach directly out to me.
All right. When COVID came up, another thing, or went down, or however you want to say, when it was enacted, when the governor basically shut the schools down, one of the very first things the Seattle Public Schools came out with was a food and feeding program, well before a curriculum, and even a curriculum plan. And Seattle Public Schools took a lot of heat. They were like, man, you guys are more worried about feeding these kids than you guys are and worried about, what's the education plan moving forward.
Which is ridiculous to me, right? Because if you're hungry, how are you going to be able to learn? You know what I'm saying? That's really going back to, making sure that people understand that schools for so many kids are where they get their most basic of needs met. So when we're talking about like, how are we updating that? Last summer, we had like 20 some odd food sites. Now we have 40. You're going to be able to pick up, and I will send you all this information so that you can share it out with your listeners, but they're going to, not only increase the number of food sites, but also we have home delivery options for students who are in extreme situations to where they don't have transportation. And there will also be, again, bus delivery sites that are happening. And even if you can't get to any of those resources, again, that's a situation where you just need to reach out to me and I can help support with that. But there is not going to be any situation that we know about where a child is going hungry, because we will literally deliver food right to your door. We just need to know that you need that service.
All right. But before we get out of here, and I just want to speak to you in a real sincere manner, is that I don't need to tell you this, but when you're talking about a lot of people we talked about in this interview, you're talking about a real marginalized population, and you're telling people that they should reach out to you. And I'm just saying that I'm very hopeful that if people reach out to you, these very marginalized people, that you will take these communications very seriously and follow up. And, I mean, I know what it is out there. I know what a lot of these parents and these children are up against. and you're saying that people can contact you. And I'm just letting you know that, we're here to hold you accountable, because this is a
Absolutely.
very fragile population of people that really need help out there. And
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
being said, can you give everybody the email address or the contact that you want them to reach out to you at?
You can reach out to me at Brandon, BRANDON .Hersey, HERSEY at seattleschools.org.
All right, Brandon Hersey. I see that when you're not teaching, you got your microphone over there. It looks like they're going to do a comeback of the 5 heartbeats. You know what I'm saying?
You're gonna have to do
With
something,
Raid, you
man.
got the shirt on and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, we keep it all the way funky over this way.
Man, funky it is.
Hey,
All right, brother. You have a wonderful day, man, and stay after it in these schools.
You as well. You as well. Happy to chat. Looking forward to the next opportunity.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Peace.